Hello and welcome to the EEPROM 9, where my beard has grown to make me look like a hobo, and the subject of the day's teardown is... Oh, hang on. Bear with me. Subject of today's teardown is to take apart the pager. Ah yes, of course, I paged myself the teardown. Excellent, so, yes, today's teardown. Mr. Motorola here. So, today we'll be taking apart the Motorola Memo Classic Flex Network pager sent to me by Edwin Burton. A little splash screen should be appearing about now. And also, he also lushly provided a nice little screwdriver set, which I have already chewed and had to WD-40 because I sort of chewed the saliva went in and made them go a bit rusty, but that's since been fixed with a bit of WD-40. So yes, he also sent in a whole load of other stuff that will be coming in future teardowns, so a massive thumbs up has to go to this guy for sending in a nice amount of stuff to pull to bits and show on the internet. There's some real interesting and obscure stuff in that pic. But yes, pages. Rather interesting bits of tech that I never saw when I was little, despite growing up in the 90s. Mostly because my mum was, well, my mum was the only driver, and so she was often driving me and my brother around with the dogs on her own, and she wanted something a bit more advanced than this. So she got a mobile phone when I was born, so yeah. I have never actually seen one of these in person till I got this. And, well, these things just look so sexy. So this thing comes in a lovely little carry case that you can't see the display through. Brilliant design there, Motorola. And it clips to your jeans, whatever you're wearing. Unfortunately, this one, the display has gone a bit diddly-ho, and all attempts to recover it have failed. I have yet to try heating it, though. I might try that at some point, I might not, it depends. It's relatively easy to disassemble and quick. You just take off the battery cover, throw out the battery, and we're instantly provided with 3 programming ports. We have not probed these to see what's on them, nor am I really going to bother too much. But this particular unit uses what is known as the Flex Network, developed by Motorola. It has your usual bastard screws that, thanks to a de-bastard screwdriver, we are able to remove. Right, there we go. Get that screw out of the way, I hope it doesn't roll on the floor. And that one does the exact thing that I didn't want it to. Oh well, I'll find it later. So we pull off the back, and we are greeted nicely by some nice, old-fashioned, by today's standards, circuitry, but interesting nonetheless, which comes out relatively easy. There's not really much inside the front other than the battery contacts, which is quite a nice design there, because it eliminates the whole wear and tear. No cables to snap, just goes onto gold pads on the board. And it's a 2-board configuration. First off, we have the LCD, where there's buttons that sit. Nice little rubber shroud. Goes round, flip down the LCD, which is a completely passive LCD, and is powered by a driver on board that you can see the bottom of. That's a BGA. Well, not quite BGA for the time, but you got your standard sort of membrane type keyboard. You know, you see these button types in a lot of early mobile phones actually, where it's a rubber thing that pushes down the carbon plastic. Interestingly, you might note there's this little thing. It looks like a reed switch, but actually it's probably going to be some kind of backlight. How do I know this? Well, there's an incy wincy itty bitty filament for one thing, And on top of that, just look at the design of that. Looks like a backlight housing. I'm surprised it's not an LED of some kind. Taking that off just reveals a few test pads on the PCB, someone with permanent number, a date code of the board, 9951. So this is, bearing in mind the pager networks got shut off in about 1999 or 2000, so it was a bit late to the party. Now, on the other side, we have, out the two boards, a nice little array of circuitry. The battery's about to die, which is annoying. So, let's take that off, and we have the two main boards. We have the RF board, and we have the computer control logic board. So the first board we will look at is the RF board. Now we have two crystals in this, which is actually quite an interesting little design thing. Because one, as you may notice, is 3-pin, while the other is 2-pin. Now, the actual Flex network runs on 900 MHz, so that explains the lack of standard RF voodoo design. If we take off the rubber shroud, we can see around this crystal, if it will come off. It'd help if it didn't chew my nails off every 5 seconds, but hey. We find that the crystal is not entirely revealing on its frequency. It's a bit difficult to read on this particular crystal because it doesn't comply with any standards. But this one's about 17.9 or is that 8 megahertz. The camera probably actually has a better view. This will be your RF control chip, but unfortunately there is nothing on it online. In fact, that's the story of all the chips in the whole device. And here on the back we have a few passives. We've got some variable capacitors. You can see where the RF section of the circuit lies. Coils, caps, a few transistors, which will probably be RF. There's a vary cap, there's another vary cap. Well, that's just a few passives for the electronics that live over here. Here's the connector to the main board, and we have a third oscillator crystal. We also have these, which look like, if we can peel that off, they almost look like some kind of diode. They could be an inductor of some type. I mean, we got something written there, but we don't know what that means, unfortunately. So there's not a huge amount going on electronically, other than, well, what we can't actually look at, and that's the bloody chips. This could be a hybrid due to its package design, as you can see. It's quite tall and it's all ceramic. An interesting note. Onto the main circuit. The nice thing about this PCB is I haven't had to adjust anything on the camera. Here we have our Sony, is that Sony? Looks like it. A little Sony battery or something for the RTC. We have the RTC crystal here. Absolutely tons of passives, from transistors to diodes to tantalum caps to more diodes and caps to resistors. We have the little beeper, we have the main microcontroller. I could only find reference to that of being a microcontroller, nothing else, no details on it. We have the display driver, because just about all the display pins lead to this little chip, and bearing in mind from the beginning you see it can display text, you're going to need a pretty beefy custom display driver for something like this, at least when you're looking at 1990s standards. Then we got this mysterious chip. Now some people might be thinking, what could that be? Well, essentially the I/O chip, because it has to communicate with this through this little pin, and look, it goes straight into this. You also probably find it will probably drive the motor. It's basically probably, from an educated guess, your all-out I/O. And in fact, if you look, there are pins. This pin goes all the way through to here. This one goes this way, and this one, well, we can't tell. Even if we look at the other side of the board, we'd have to continuity it. These would probably be some sort of testing programming pads to program the actual unit itself. And of course we have our little vibrator motor, a bit larger than the ones you find in mobile phones, which is an interesting note. My book Junkbox Bots on Wheels said about salvaging pager motors, but as I said, this is the first pager I've actually ever seen outside of a film or a game or something, because GTA, one of the GTAs, I can't remember which one, had you contacted via a pager because it was based in the 80s. And these were actually a technology invented, a lot longer ago than you'd think. I think some of the first commercially successful ones were from the 70s. Just as a fun note, here we have an FSK 900 MHz Flex Network carrier wave. There's our data, there's our carrier, there's it all modulated. Thanks for watching.